I'm about to proceed. We're back to our book, True Slavery, or Being a True Slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last time we finished the obligation of enjoining the good, and the obligation of enjoining the good and forbidding the bad comes under the second chapter. The second chapter talks about the inequality of things. And the next title here that we will address is No Equality. No Equality. And certainly, No Equality is a title that may not be that positive, right? Because we tend to think equality is good, right? Is equality good? Equality is good if you are holding two similar things equal. But if you're holding dissimilar things or unequal things equal, then that is a form of injustice. It is a form of injustice. Are all lives equal? Is killing a mouse like killing a baby? But this is a life and this is a life, right? And the mouse also has family and so on. But the lives are not equal. And all sane people, except for very few, will tell you it is not equal. So to hold the unequal equal is as unjust as holding the equal unequal. So the word equality is not an absolute word. What is absolute? Justice. And there is a difference between justice and equality. Because everything in this world has to be managed, treated, approached with justice. Every person, every occasion, every action. Justice should be the foundation of your actions. But equality is not absolute. Equality is good if you hold the equal things equal, not unequal things. So it says, whoever recognizes only the cosmic reality, al-haqiqa al-kawniyya. Remember last time we talked about al-haqiqa al-kawniyya, cosmic reality, and al-haqiqa al-shar'iyya or al-diniyya, the religious reality. What is the cosmic reality? Universal reality, al-haqiqa al-kawniyya. Give me examples.
You're going to fall sick or
yeah.
something is like an accident.
Yeah. And the sun rises from the east. There is no obligation there is no injunction here. You're not being addressed by this. You're not being asked about it. There is no obligation on you. There is no prohibition. Also, when you fall sick, you're not being asked. And so when you die, when you're born, when something happens to someone, those are cosmic realities, universal realities. Give me a better example that will highlight the difference between the al-haqiqa al-kawniyya, the cosmic reality, and al-haqiqa al-shar'iyya, the religious reality, or the religious decrees of Allah. Prayer is what? Prayer is a religious decree. It's a haqiqa shar'iyya. It's an amr shar'i. But what would be cosmic but not religious? It is a cosmic decree, but not a religious decree. Huh? Poverty? But give me a better example.
No, we said falling sick or
A better example. This belief, kufr, isn't it this belief a cosmic decree? Do you think that the disbeliever does this despite Allah's wish? Do you think that the disbeliever overwhelms the divine will, al-irada al-ilahiyya? Absolutely not. Do you think that Iblis, when he refused to prostrate, this was beyond Allah's control, beyond Allah's will? Most certainly not. So Allah decreed it, right? But did not like it. So Allah meant for Iblis to reject and to disobey. But did Allah like for Iblis to reject and disobey? No. So that is the difference between the universal decree, and which is the cosmic decree, which is al-amr al-kawni. Part of al-amr al-kawni is what? Al-Kaaba will be destroyed at the end of time, right? You know this from hadith al-fitan, hadith about the trials before the day of judgment. Does Allah like this? No. But the one who will destroy it, is he acting beyond Allah's control? Certainly not. Within Allah's control. In fact, it is Allah who will create that very action, because the human being is incapable of creating his own action. Action and energy are interchangeable, right? There is no action without energy. Energy and substance are interchangeable, right? Energy, substance, substance, energy. So energy is a creation, right? The very energy with which you perform any action is Allah's creation. So you're basically completely powerless without Allah's permission. For you to do something, you will never be able to do it. So that is the difference between al-haqiqa al-kawniyya and al-haqiqa al-shar'iyya. The disbeliever is always in a state of disharmony. Why? Because he is agreeing with al-haqiqa al-kawniyya. He is disbelieving by the leave and permission of Allah, the will of Allah, but he is in conflict with the pleasure of Allah. Sometimes sometimes you want something, but you don't like it. Can you give me an example from this life? Yeah, but there is a better example about smoking, and maybe you remember it from. Huh?
You're going to walk, you don't like it.
No, I'll give you a better example, but yeah, but in this case, you're not wanting to go to work. You're sort of forced into it. You need to go. You do not want. But I'm talking about want. Okay. If your wife tells you that your teenage son smokes, and then you try to set him up to sort of arrest them red-handed, and you wait outside of the door, and you leave a pack of cigarettes inside his bedroom, and wait for him to smoke so that you can catch him red-handed. Regardless of the whole scenario being a good idea or not a good idea, we're just talking about the scenario, the example. In this case, do you want him to smoke? Yes, you do want him to smoke, because you know that he smokes and you want to catch him red-handed, and you don't have that much time. You're not going to stay there for a couple of hours. So you're so eager that he gets it over with and let's just get done with this whole ordeal. But you're not liking it. You don't like for him to smoke, but you want him to smoke to catch him. So that is an example. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. And to Allah belongs the greatest example or parable. All of those examples are not to make similarity between Allah and us, or between Allah's will and our will, but rather to just make it a little easier for us to understand how you may want something but not like it. So whoever recognizes only the cosmic reality, which is al-haqiqa al-kawniyya, whilst ignoring the religious reality, al-haqiqa al-diniyya, will see all kinds of things as equal, where Allah has clearly differentiated between them to such an extent that he may even regard Allah and idols as equal. As Allah says, they will say while contending therein in hell, by Allah, we were truly in a manifest error when we held you, the false gods, idols, as equals in worship with the Lord of the worlds. So the people, what is this whole talk about here? This whole talk is about people who see everything to be the same, different manifestations of one reality. The one reality is that Allah is in control of all things. So to them, eventually, all things are controlled by Him. All things are brought to existence by Him. So all things are to be accepted, to be, in a sense, liked, to be tolerated. In that sense, belief and disbelief are brought to existence by Him. In that sense, truthfulness and lying, murder and mercy, all things are brought to existence by Him. So you as a human being, or those deviant sects, that is how they think, that since it's all coming from Allah, then we should accept it all. So whether you worship Allah or worship, false deities, whether you act righteously or otherwise, you are not in control of any of this as a human being. And it is all the doing of Allah. And since it is the doing of Allah, then we should accept it. And not only accept it, but also like it. But does Allah Himself say this? It doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ? Shall we then make the Muslimin like the mujrimeen, the criminals, the wrongdoers? How do you judge? مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ? So if Allah is reprimanding them for holding equal the Muslimin and the mujrimeen, then you cannot say it's all Allah's doing, and then we should accept it because it is Allah's doing. This is Allah's doing as far as the cosmic reality is concerned, the haqiqa al-kawniyya, the cosmic universal decrees. Yes, Allah willed for Iblis to become Iblis and Shaitan, and Allah willed for the disbeliever to become a disbeliever, otherwise they would have not been able to disbelieve, because no one does anything in His dominion that is outside of His control. But Allah dislikes all that, Therefore, you as a Muslim should dislike it, and you should not hold these things equal. Now, someone may say, but why is he talking about this? Who would be crazy to say that? No, there have been sects in the history of Islam that said that. And there have been famous so-called, sort of awliya, perceived as awliya, so-called awliya, but they're not the true awliya, that said things of that nature. It is deviation that you encounter when you depart from the text of the Quran and the Sunnah, and when you depart from the way of the righteous predecessors. You should go back and ask yourself, did any of the righteous predecessors say this? Did Abu Bakr or Umar or Uthman or Ali or any of the righteous predecessors say this? And the answer will be clearly no. But when you depart from the text of the Quran and the Sunnah, al-Wahy, and you depart from the behavior and practice and approach of the righteous predecessors, then you can get into all kinds of misguidance and deviation. He says some even went as far as equating Allah with everything that exists, and saying that the worship and obedience that is due to Allah is also due to everything in existence, because Allah and His creation are the same. And those people, they may start out, and I hope that you don't misunderstand any of the, because it gets to be a little bit convoluted here. So if you have any sort of misconceptions, or if you have any thoughts, please ask as many questions as you want. They start out with like a good-looking argument. Good-looking argument. You say to yourself, or they say, that we are, as human beings, are completely powerless, right? We're powerless. And Allah brought us from what? Adam. Adam means what? Nothingness. It's not a word in English, but we can make it one. Nothingness. So Allah brought us from nothingness into existence. That means that we are what? We're nothing. Without Allah, we're nothing. Then you move a step further and you say that we are nothing. And if we're nothing, if we are nothing, and we know that Allah exists, right? Okay, and we are nothing. So, who's this? You can't deny that there is something here that you're pinching. Then it will lead you to what? To the belief in hulul and ittihad, divine union and indwelling. To believe that the creation and the creator are one, and there is no difference. Until Ibn Arabi said, or it was written in one of his books, what means the abd is the Rabb and the Rabb is the abd. فَلَا تَدْرِي مَنِ الْمُكَلَّفِ. So you don't know who's being addressed by the obligations. إن قلت عبد فذاك رب وإن قلت رب فأنا يكلف. If you say it's a servant, it's a slave, the slave is the Lord. And if it is the Lord, then how could it be addressed by obligations? In other words, extremism, even if you take a good idea to the end, will result in deviation. Not every good idea, bigger is not always better. More is not always good. There is a level after which you should stop. So if you respect your teacher, for instance, respect for the teacher is good, but after some point it becomes bad, then it becomes disliked, then it becomes haram, then it becomes kufr. So not every good thing can be exaggerated. And the same applies here. We're not nothing because Allah did already brought us from nothingness. If we say that we are nothing, then Allah did not do anything. Then where is the miracle here of creation, of bringing that nothingness into existence? So we're not nothing, we are a thing. Because it is the work of Allah that brought us into existence from nothingness, but now we are something. And that thing that is us is completely different from the Creator. We're the creation, we're the servants, we're the slaves. And we are different from the Creator. Now, the concept of divine union and indwelling is not only in Islam. In fact, it is a concept that was introduced into Islam by or through contact between Islam and Eastern philosophies. Because they do have that concept heavily in Eastern philosophies, the union. And in fact, after many cycles of reincarnation, you merge with Buddha, for instance, in Buddhism. So you unite with Buddha at the end. You can also say that this concept is present in Christianity, but to a lesser extent. That is why the people who believe in this amongst us Muslims are more disbeliever than the Christians. Because at least the Christians divided that divinity between God, true God, and one of the greatest messengers, and the greatest angel, or the Holy Spirit, or the angel of truth. So they divided that divinity between God and one prophet and one angel. It's not like it is okay, but we're just saying. But if you think about divine union and indwelling, you divided the divinity amongst all creations. So the pigs are in some sense part of the divine, and everything is part of the divine. And in this case, that is a form of disbelief that is worse than Christianity. So we have to make the distinction clear between the Creator and the creation. We are the creation. Do you know something called vanishment? We discussed it before. Vanishment. There is two different types of vanishments. There is the vanishment of the extreme Sufi tariqas. And I'm not saying Sufism in general. I'm saying extreme Sufis. There is a difference between Ghulat Sufiya and Sufi. So Ghulat Sufiya, extreme Sufis, they have a type of vanishment that is called vanishment of existence. Fana al-wujud. But Ahl Sunnah have a vanishment also, but it is a different type of vanishment. It's called vanishment of perception. Fana al-shuhud. What is the difference between the two? If you say, if you wake up in the morning and you argue with your wife or your someone else, your brother, you wake up in the morning, first thing in the morning, you start an argument with your brother. You can say to yourself, my brother is not really the true actor here, the true effector, the one who brought up all of this incident is not my brother, it's Allah, right? This whole incident was created by Allah. It came in your way to test you. That's the first test in the morning. You know, your first test in the morning. You wake up and your brother, you know, pushes you or punches you or does something to you. It is your first test in the morning. And you have to really not be obstructed. Your vision should not be obstructed by the image of your brother from seeing that the true effector, the true examiner here is Allah. He's the one who is examining you. Now, if you say to yourself that my brother is nothing, my brother is really nothing. It's like air, or it's like nothing. I should not, worry about my brother because he's nothing. It is Allah who's testing me. That is called fana al-wujud. This is the vanishment of existence. Because you have to understand that Allah is testing you through a tool that is called your brother. That tool exists. It is not absent. It is present. Allah is not testing you. Your argument is not with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ta'ala Allahumma yaqulun. Exalted is He. It is with your brother. Your brother is the tool. The tool does exist. But how do you keep in mind that your brother is really worthless in that whole thing? It is not about your brother. It is not about who wins. It's not about who defeats the other or comes out on top. It's about how you will pass that test from Allah. How do you get to you think of your brother as a glass board. We gave that example before, right? So the glass board exists or not? Exists. But the glass board that does not conceal what is behind it. The true effector here is Allah. The examiner is Allah. You should be watching Allah, not your brother. Muraqabah, watchfulness, means here that watch. Don't get carried away. Don't, get into the heat of the argument and allow the argument to obstruct your vision from witnessing the true reality, which is that Allah is examining you now through this encounter with your classmate, with your coworker, with your wife, your neighbor, your brother, anyone. So in this case, it is your brother vanished in your perception, not in his existence. You do know that he exists. The glass board, you can knock on it. It's there. But it does not obstruct your vision. So that is the vanishment of perception. As if he does not exist. Not that he does not exist. As if. But he exists. But as if you're not seeing him. Because you're worried about watching Allah, not him. Muraqabat Allah, not him. And the next paragraph says, but this is not reality. He talks about the people who, use this cosmic reality to hold all things equal. He says that this is not reality, and that this is not only counter to the religion, but it is counter to reason as well. It's counter to common sense. And then there are many, many verses that are mentioned about the distinction between false and truth, between good and bad, between the criminals and the submitters, between mu'mineen and otherwise. These people, the people of the Quran, Ahlullahi wa Khassatu, the Prophet ﷺ one time said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a people of his people. And then the Sahaba asked him, who are Allah's people? And he said, Ahlul Qur'ani hum Ahlullahi wa Khassatu. The people of the Quran are Allah's people, and His khassa means what? It's like it's khassa. It's like, you know, the intimate circle of friends. Intimate circle of friends. These people, which are the people of the Quran, the believers, know that Allah is the Lord, owner and creator of all things. The Creator, may He be glorified, is different from His creation. He is not incarnated in it, neither is He one with it. The Christians are regarded as kuffar because they believe in the incarnation and think that Allah is one with the Messiah, especially that Allah is one with the Messiah especially. What then should we say about one who applies this idea to the whole of creation? Even though they know that Allah has commanded them to obey Him and His Messenger, and has forbidden them to disobey Him and His Messenger, that He does not like wrongdoing, that He does not want kufr for His slaves, and that His creatures should worship Him, obey His commands, and seek His help in all this. So what could make people deviate to that extent? What would make people deviate to that extent to believe in such, you know, it is counter to everything in the Quran. The whole Quran is about belief in disbelief. The whole Quran is about the difference between good and bad, belief and disbelief. So the contrast here is quite obvious in the whole Quran. So what would make people, how can they argue against this? And then say that the good and the bad are both coming from Allah, therefore we should accept them both. Well, first of all, they would never be consistent. They are the most inconsistent people. Most inconsistent. Why? Because if someone slapped that person on his face, he will not say it's coming from Allah, I will accept it. Right? They would accept it as long as as long as it's away from them, it doesn't harm them. Then they will accept it. You know, this fellow worships, a stone. This fellow worships a tree. This fellow worships the sun. This fellow worships a prophet. This fellow worships a cow. This fellow, and we're all good. You know, we're all, trying to do our best and get to, the same ending, and everything is the good and equal, and he's not paying anything out of his pocket, right? But if someone slapped him on the face, he would never say that. So it's all coming from Allah. Why is this not coming from Allah now? Or if someone did, more harm to him. Also, they are qadari in ta'a and jabri in ma'asiyah, which means what? Qadari means what? The people who, Qadari means the people that reject al-Qadr. People reject al-Qadr like Mu'tazila, for instance. They reject al-Qadr. Because for Mu'tazila are the people who use their mind, they put their mind above the revelation, or they twist the revelation if it does not agree with their mind. The revelation will never be in conflict with the right logic. But the revelation will be in conflict with your logic sometimes, his logic sometimes, etc., my logic sometimes. So if you allow yourself to be a judge over the revelation, then you will fall in deviation. So they could not understand how everything will be predestined, yet we are still responsible for our actions. Do you remember the example of the baby? Okay, well, I'm not going to repeat it. So they couldn't understand it, so they rejected the concept of qadr, or predestination. So they said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us power, and then we can use it in whichever way we want. But it is not under the control of Allah. So when you disbelieve, it is not Allah that made you disbelieve. It is not Allah that created this action. If you kill someone, that act of murder, it's not Allah's creation. But if you say that, it means that things happen in His universe, in His dominion, that are beyond His control. And it's untrue. But that's what they say. That's what they say. So the Qadaris reject Qadar. And the Jabris are the people who say that we don't have any will. We ourselves are void of will. But Allah says, فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Let him whosoever wills believe, and let him whosoever wills disbelieve. So Allah confirmed that we do have a will. Our will is superseded by His. His is greater than ours. Ours is under the control of His will. But we do have a will. The Jabris do not believe that we have any will. The Jabris believe that we are like a feather in the way of the wind. Feather in the wind. Like we're just being moved right and left. We don't have any will. So those people, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them to do something, they act like Qadaris. They don't comply. They do not comply. Like Qadaris do not comply. Qadaris make a clear distinction between Al-Haqiqa Al-Kawniyya, the universal decree, and Al-Haqiqa Al-Shar'iyya, the religious decree. They understand that they are different. They put them completely different. So if Allah commands them to do something, they don't comply. If Allah prohibits them from something and they fall into it, they use the Jabri argument that I am not in control. Why were you in control when you did not pray, even though Allah commanded you to pray? And now that you committed a murder, or that you acted promiscuously, or that you stole money, why is it that you're using the other argument, the flip argument? I'm not in control. Well, you were in control there. Allah commanded you to pray 5 times a day. And you were in control to say, I will not pray. So you're a person that is like this, that's inconsistent like this, is a person that is not following any rationale, any logic, but it's a person that is just following their own whims. The unfortunate thing is, not all the people who fall into deviation and innovation are following their whims. Sometimes they do this out of ignorance or out of over-glorification of their teachers, for instance. They listen to their teacher and they take everything the teacher says to them, so they fall into those deviations, even though they're not particularly after their whims or desires. طيب. Inshallah, next time we'll talk about the rest. We wanted to ask you about the time of the